With regards to film, movies engage two of our senses, vision and hearing. In this breakdown, we will be analyzing the use of sound in Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. More specifically, we will be breaking down the scene in the film where the artificially intelligent antagonist, HAL 9000, kills one of the astronauts, Frank Poole, during his spacewalk test outside of the ship. However, before we can begin analyzing this scene, let's first dive into some background context. In the book Looking at Movies, An Introduction to Film, authors Richard Barsom and David Monahan define 4 different types of sound: diegetic versus non-diegetic sound, and on-screen versus off-screen sound. Diegetic sounds come from a source that is within the film's world. They are sounds which can be heard and perceived by both the film's audience and the characters, such as dialogue or sounds created when a character interacts with their environment. Non-diegetic sounds come from a source outside the world of the film, and are heard solely by the audience. The music/score is a great example of this. On top of all of that, there are 3 types of exclusively environmental sounds, such as sound effects, ambient sound, and Foley sounds. Sound effects include all sounds artificially created for the soundtrack that have a definite function in telling the story. Ambient sound emanates from the ambience of an environment being filmed and can be recorded during production or added during post-production. Finally, there is sound Foley, and the main misconception with this type of sound is how it differs from regular sound effects. Sound effects are created wild and then edited into the film, whereas Foleys are recorded in sync with what is being shown on screen. Now that we have the context out of the way, let's shift our attention to the scene. Notice that there are only 2 sounds present in this scene: the sound of Frank breathing and the hissing sound emanating from his suit. Both of these sounds are diegetic, and this technique serves as a means to further pull the audience into the immersion. Also take note of how Kubrick intentionally neglects to use music in the entirety of the scene. This ultimately escalates the tension further, especially as Hal turns the pod around. From what is being presented on screen, accompanied with what can be heard, the audience can fully comprehend what Hal intends to do, which makes the scene that much more terrifying. As Hal encloses on Frank, the shot cuts away to Hal's glowing red eye, and by this point it is not much of a surprise to the audience when they see Frank fly out into space, untethered in the following shot. To drive home this point even further, as the camera zooms in on Hal's eye, the sound of Frank's breathing and the hissing of his suit is abruptly cut to silence. Now imagine if this scene was reshot today, and the filmmakers decided to accompany the scene with a score. It would not have been nearly as effective. Back in the day, the film radically redefined the way that audiences and critics alike understood the interaction between image and music, and opened the door for the possibility that the whole soundscape, dialogue, effects, and music could do the same thing on a grander scale. To quote Alfred Hitchcock, if it's a good film, the sound could go off and the audience would still have a perfectly clear idea of what was going on.